We're ready. We're rolling.
Okay,
Welcome back.
All right, we got a starting point.
We're at a starting point. It's just me and Si today of the normal crew. We have a small studio audience, but we have special guests of the paranormal variety. It's very exciting.
Wait, paranormal. What are you talking about here?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Paranormal.
We have Willie Robertson, which is
I'm glad I'm included in the paranormal.
Well, it's a strange sighting to see you here at the office.
He fits in well with the paranormal.
Exactly. And then we have the host of Blurry Creatures, Nate and Luke.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Blurry Creatures?
Blurry Creatures.
Blurry Creatures.
It's a podcast.
Well, this ought to be fun.
It's about you, probably.
Hey, I'm a blurry creature.
See?
Yeah. The blurriest.
There you go.
That's right.
So we're here in the duck call room. What brings y'all to Louisiana? Just to hang out with us?
Pretty much.
Or are y'all hunting something?
Well,
I have a lot of questions.
We might be. We're always on the lookout.
Always on the lookout.
Yeah, there's always the elusive creatures around. We're always looking.
They're always on alert. Bible even talks about that. Be alert.
The Bible.
Yeah.
Do you think the Bible was referring to blurry creatures?
Well, hey, look, all it says is, hey, be alert.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So,
if that's for blurry creatures, then hey, good for you.
There's a lot of blurry creatures in the Bible.
Is there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of crazy stuff in there.
I guess in Genesis there was a. I just started a couple days ago. It's a new year, new me, reading the
You
Bible.
act like you've never, you're like, oh,
Only
really?
66.
What is-
Yeah.
What are these strange humans?
Bible.
How's that Bible reading plan going?
There's like lion-faced men. You got giants. You got all kinds of weird stuff in there. We talk about. That's basically what we.
Yeah.
That's like half of our show is kind of going back to the Bible and talking about all the weird stuff.
Okay.
So we do that a lot. So if it's not okay on Sunday morning, it's okay on Blurry Creatures. That's for sure. Or it's not. It's always okay, I guess, at church. It's just more like, how deep do you want to get into it on Sunday morning? We just
Sunday mornings when people go to church. I don't know how familiar Johnny D is with.
Unless there's 7 day
That's a
Adventists.
time where a lot of people dedicate. Yeah,
That's a good point y'all made, though. Okay, because creation. Okay, we haven't even seen, but just a little small portion of creation.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that we may have not put these eyeballs on.
Well, let's just get straight to it.
yeah.
Black Panthers.
Well, hey,
There's no reason to beat around the bush. It's
That's
our
right.
thing.
They exist.
Si's seen one. I saw one in front of Dollar General on Arkansas Road about 8 years ago. Do they exist?
Sure.
Not only that, me and Stone had just went to Texas. Okay, and he just said, yeah, I should stop and go cross over to the interstate because there was a big black animal laying in the road on the other side dead. He said it was a cat.
This was last weekend?
It may have been a big black bobcat or whatever. He said, but hey, so,
And y'all didn't turn around?
No, we didn't.
I feel like a Black Panther's basic blurry. That's just like that's
Entry level.
Yeah, it's
You have
child's
no
play.
idea how much controversy happens in this room and in y'all's family.
Oh, that's nothing.
Like Jace and Si almost didn't talk to each other for 6 years over the fact that Si saw a Black Panther.
we were talking about an episode we did
It's like a low bar for getting along.
early in ours. There was guys that saw giants in the bayou here down in Louisiana. We were talking about. We interviewed a guy that these fishermen were out and they're out deep, and they're did a campfire. They're in their boat because they're far. They couldn't really get to the shore as much, so they're out on their boat and they see these giant heads looking through the bushes. And the ancient giants are supposedly still down here
In Louisiana?
in the
Hey.
woods.
The Bible even talks about giants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was like one of the weirder ones. But we've heard they're also on Solomon Islands, but they're here too. They like the
Afghanistan.
water.
There's a lot of stories out of Afghanistan about giants. Of course, the Kandahar giant's the famous one.
Yeah.
What's the island that was supposedly
Fantasy Island.
Huh?
Yeah.
Fantasy
No,
Island.
not Fantasy
Oh,
Island.
okay.
It's the island off of
Never,
Louisiana.
Neverland.
Well, they said tigers were on it, and
Tigers are a normal thing that everyone agrees on.
Well, no. Well, why would they agree on tigers and not on Black Panthers?
I've been asking that for years. Martin's not here, so we're in the clear. We have just
Well,
a bunch of
I ain't
people.
worried about that. Martin's a biologist, okay, and then and he should have been born in Missouri because he showed me. Okay,
Where-
It's a show me state.
Where
But
did you see a Black
biologist
Panther?
guy, he studied it and all this. Okay, But unless, that's like, I have trouble with this because, I haven't seen Jesus, but I believe in him. Okay? Because just because you haven't seen something, that means you don't believe in it. There's a lot of things you haven't seen, human being. And this is from a company bumping, okay?
Yeah.
Company.
A country.
I'm just glad Willie hired
And a
you
company
as
bumpkin.
company bumpkin of Duck Command.
Hey, I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that you haven't seen. For you to say I don't believe in it because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's a huge part of our show is that we interview people who have experienced this, and there's no cameras rolling, and then you hear the same story over and over and over again. There is a part of you that has to have like faith and be like, this person's either lying to me or they had this experience. And that happens a lot. And that's kind of what we do is give people a place to share their paranormal experience, whether they've seen a creature or they've had, there's a lot of demonic stuff that comes on our show. People have really strange.
Oh, no. See, that's where,
That's where Si takes over.
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
That's where I look and say, well, wait a minute, hold it. Everything used to be word of mouth with the human race. You go back in the old days when we moved west in wagons pulled by mules and horses. We didn't have telegraph, we didn't have phones, we didn't have all this technology. Okay,
cool
at one time it was a very simple life. And everything was done word of mouth. We used to have a Pony Express that took mail from one state to the other.
That was when you were in your 20s?
Hey, no. Yeah. That was in one of my former lives.
They stopped in caves and they drew in those. You
No.
see a lot of that stuff. That's
Well, yeah, I
about
mean,
it.
there wasn't writing for a long time in human history.
Yeah.
It was all oral tradition. So you make a point.
I think it was a little bit before.
It was a little bit before
We were going
it wasn't
west
the
here
westward
in the-
expansion of the United
Yeah.
States.
Everything was told. Hey, they was known as storytellers.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything was handed down by word of mouth. Okay. Well, I've heard Black Panthers ever since I've been a baby.
Have you seen a UFO?
Huh?
Have you seen any UFOs or anything like that in the sky?
Yeah.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
No, I'm serious. That's why I'm saying.
When
for
did you see a
to say,
UFO?
Out while we was catfishing.
And we've done this
I-
podcast for
no,
4 years, and
no,
you've
no.
never been like, "Hey, saw an
Hey,
alien
hey,
one
look,
That's
time."
why we're here. You know?
I
Gotta
told
bring
you,
it out of 'em.
I've led an interesting life.
Did they do anything to you?
Well, no.
How do you guys get anything
But
done?
hey, here's the deal, though. Listen to
How do y'all
this.
get anything done?
No.
You'll like
We
this.
don't.
Okay, we're laying down, got a fire going, and we're looking up in the sky at the stars. Okay, and look, here's something up here, a light going. Zoop, zoop. I'm talking about instantly going from one side of the sky to the other, and then it gets right above us and zip, zip, a couple times. And we're sitting there looking, saying, "What in the world are we looking at?" Well,
aliens.
nobody knew. Okay, because look, we was in
What
New
year was this?
Mexico.
What year was this?
Oh, that was when I was a kid.
Okay.
But we was in New Mexico duck hunting on the Rio Grande River. Okay, it's 4:30 a.m. in the morning. We're throwing out decoys, and in that 30-minute period that we're throwing out decoys, we seen 17 different shooting stars, burning planets, whatever you want to call them. One of them was gigantic on fire coming across. It got right above us. The little piece broke off. Now you got a giant one and a small one going across. But we seen 17 different ones that morning. And that was like, 10 years ago? Maybe 15?
Mm.
So just because the point I was making was just because you haven't seen it with your eyes
Yeah.
doesn't mean it don't exist.
New year, new me, Martin. New year, new me.
Oh, look, if you spent 2024 disorganized, paying too much for subscriptions, all the things, look, do we have the resolution for you?
Yes.
It's called Rocket Money.
I'm buckling down on the rocket money this year because last year was wild.
You spend a little money.
Spend a little money. So we
There
got
you go.
to dial it in and make sure we're not wasting it on silly things.
Financial wellness is a top priority. And that's where Rocket Money can help. They can help you set goals, prioritize what matters, and get organized. Look, Rocket Money is the personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. You can see all your subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, Rocket Money can help cancel it. Look, Rocket Money's dashboard gives a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. You can create a personalized budget to help keep you spending on track. You can get alerts if bills increase in price or if there's unusual spending activity. Plus, the news goal feature automatically saves money for you.
That's a great feature.
And you know what the coolest thing is? They'll negotiate to lower your bills for you. If you're like, man, I feel like it's too much. You scan your bills, send it to them. They find you opportunities to save, ask them to negotiate, and they will deal with customer service so that you don't have to. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Let 2025 be the year you get on track. Save you some money. Get back in the out of the red and into the black, baby. That's what we're going for. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/duck today. That's rocketmoney.com/duck. One more time, rocketmoney.com/duck.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we talk about on the show a lot about the idea that like you have all these stories, right? And Si, you've given us a bunch of stories here, but like if even one of them is true, right, then you have to expand your paradigm. It busts your paradigm. So whether it be, a UFO experience or a Black Panther, as we've kind of gone over, you got to make room for that, right? And I think you did a great job. I think we can quit the show now. You can basically explain how good and evil work.
You got it all figured out.
But
Word of mouth.
We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Pony Express.
Yeah.
We say that a lot, though. We think that there are a hierarchy of dark entities and creatures and all kinds of things, principalities, powers, dominions. I think a lot of Christians aren't aware of how many dark things they're out there and how many different, almost like species of these things. And people will come on our show and describe all kinds of wacky stuff. And just when you think you've heard it all, someone comes on and tells you something else they've seen. And we got weird stuff showing up in people's houses, like everything from gray aliens to the Hat Man. And
The Hat Man?
Yeah, the Hat Man.
Orbs.
What's the Hat Man?
The Hat Man is this tall, skinny guy with a hat on. And he shows up and people see him all the time. It's actually we get people email us all the time about
Is
seeing
he like
the Hat Man.
selling knives?
Yeah, he works for Cutco.
But it's just like bizarre stuff like that. And you get like 10 emails about seeing the Hat Man. You're like, okay, what is this thing? And why does it take why does it have like a character? Why is it like not just whatever it wants to be? It's like people are describing the same experiences over and over and over again. And when that happens, and if it's a good story, then we'll kind of sniff it out and then bring them on the show and talk about it. But
I think, the basis of our show, though, is like we have a very supernatural faith, and that's in some ways, as 21st century Westerners and Americans, in a weird way, some of that very supernatural aspects of our faith have been divorced from Christianity. Like when we think about we have a virgin birth, a resurrected Christ. You've got giants and talking donkeys,
that's what I was
angels and all. I mean, think about all that, but a lot of times people don't have, especially now, like post-Enlightenment, the sort of academic era we live in, they kind of put Christianity in this box, and it's just Jesus and he did this, which is great, but it doesn't provide a lot of context when people have experiences like seeing a Black Panther or like seeing something that shouldn't be there.
Or UFO.
Yeah. What are you meant to think about that? And then what we are proponents of is that our faith is big enough. Like there's a lot of weird stuff in the Bible, stuff you won't hear on Sundays because unfortunately, a lot of the Western church is a business. So you're not getting a sermon on aliens or Genesis 6 or pick your poison when it comes to the Bible. The weird stuff you won't get a lot of that because a lot of pastors need butts and seats. And I feel like for whatever reason, Nate and I stumbled it sort of backwards into
it's good for our show,
this space where we provide a platform for people to talk about it.
No.
Yeah.
My point to make a statement. People are always, especially in a way, religious people. they're looking for signs.
Right.
A miracle. Show me a miracle. Well, hey, here's the bottom line. A miracle won't save you.
Right.
And
It
like,
will if you get healed. I mean, there's
it's like Jesus' story though. Okay.
Some miracles are actually specifically designed to save you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
But here's the thing. The story about Christ, that's how it started, because there was nothing written down until we received the Bible.
right.
But I look at this, and that's why with me, okay, if somebody tells me an amazing story, okay, that is unbelievable,
hmm
well, I've got, I'm not going to say yay or nay on it, because hey, you need to, the people need to speak to some of our military veterans.
Well, that was the beginning of our show. Was honestly, when I started really taking these things serious, was the hunters seeing things. People been in spent their whole life in the woods, coming on podcasts and telling their experience of seeing everything, big giant hairy creatures to wendigo to all the kinds of strange creatures that live out in there. And then military people, I started being like, what? These are men that don't want to make up stuff. You got cops, you got hunters, you got vets. They don't want to talk about these things and make up stories and go on podcasts.
Well,
So,
number one, most veterans I've tried to speak to that have been through it, they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it's a bad part of their life. Okay, but if the ones that have said stuff, one of them especially that I know, he was in combat and said, hey, I felt an evil presence when I walked into this cave.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, he said, and this is, these are guys that have been baptized by gunfire, by death, by watching their friends get blowed up and stuff. They're not going to lie. There's no reason for them to lie. Okay? So when somebody tells you something like that, like I felt an evil presence, and it scared the living you-know-what out of me. And that's when he changed his life because of it.
Yeah.
Well, most of us are skeptical. I think we're born that. I think a big portion of the population is more skeptical, and there's other people who can sort of read people's emotions. They look them in the eye. They can kind of sense, are you telling me the truth? And you can kind of hear it in someone's voice. And I was saying, like, when this show started, I think it was just after about 5 or 6 years of hearing these stories. And then I think Blurry Creatures is what we wanted to do. There's a lot of paranormal shows. There's a lot of shows talking about everything from Sasquatch experiences, talking about UFOs and aliens. You got Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, and they're all having these strange experiences, but there's no biblical paradigm in which they're filtering it through. And so people are coming with these wild conclusions because no Christians are really willing to have these conversations. And so you have people who've had experiences and they're coming up with, I think, bad answers to real experience.
Oh, no.
And so what we started trying to do was like, hey, there's room in the Bible for all this weird stuff. Let's talk about it. And what do you know? Like, the show kind of just took a life of its own. And there's a lot of really weird, strange topics in the Bible. For example, like, we did a show on the vest that the high priest used to wear with these stones in it, right? And they would glow, and that was how God communicated to the people. And it's like, I never heard that growing up in the church. That would have fascinated me as a kid. But there's so many like really off like things in terms of like modern Christianity. But if you go back, you're like, and we even did an interview with a guy lately that someone still has one of these stones, and whenever a Christian touches it, glows apparently. But that, that's the wild part of our show. But I think it's fascinating, and I think the Bible is a fascinating thing. And for some reason, it kind of got a little sleepy, at times in history. And I think people are getting reinvigorated with their faith. They're coming back. They're listening to this stuff. You've got UFOs in mainstream media. People are asking questions. Christians are waking up. It's a really interesting, I think, fun time to be alive right now.
Well, because they've proven, that people have been lied to. of all this stuff that how it got here and all this, that's been proven to be false.
Are you saying the government lied to us?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But the thing about it is, okay, it's
But not you. You're 95% of the time you're telling the truth, right?
hey, most of the time, okay, I am.
Unless
believe
it
it.
needs a little pizzazz.
That's right.
That's a much better
well-
rate than the government's going right now.
Yeah.
So
You know, here's the thing: a story ain't good unless it's got a little chuckle in it. Okay, you don't want it always just to be dead serious, okay? Because
That's right.
then it ain't no fun.
Yeah.
You know, so you add a little bit to lighten the load, so to speak.
Yeah.
Martin,
Yeah, buddy.
it was a tough year in retail
It was.
for everybody, including Mike Lindell.
Yeah. Our friends over at My Pillow, it was actually one of their hardest in history, but you know what saved it?
The good folks that love a good pillow.
I guarantee you. And that's folks that listen to this show and a lot of other things too. And Mike Lindell and his employees want to say thank you to these fine folks that have supported them.
Well, you're welcome, Mike, because I bought a lot of pillows because I love you.
There you go. So now you know what they're doing. They're extending their wholesale prices on classic My Pillows for our listeners. You can get standard classic My Pillows for only $14.98. I cannot believe I'm saying that. Only $14.98. But
What?
y'all know.
It gets better.
Duh, it's a My Pillow deal, isn't it? So you can upgrade to a queen size My Pillow for $18.98. And if you're like Si and you want to be treated like a king, just add $1.
That's it.
And that's all it is to it. Now they got something new too. You can get the My Body pillows. Your whole body,
My body, your body.
all
They're
our
roughly
body.
the same size.
Yeah, look, $29.98 for the My Body pillow, and if you need a multi-use My Pillow, $9.98.
What all can you do with that?
Anything you want to, just multi-use. Look, these prices can't be beaten. They won't last forever. So whether you're after pillows, bed sheets, towels, robes, slippers, we've done them all. We got them all. We use them all. They got something for you. This amazing offer won't last forever. Go to mypillow.com/
Duck.
and enter promo code
Duck.
or call 800-969-3137 to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including the standard size My Pillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, and Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free. Go to mypillow.com/
Duck.
and enter promo code
Duck.
or call 800-969-3137.
And do it immediately, if not sooner.
I think it's super interesting that there's, in some ways, there's a space now, right? Because I think people that have had weird experiences in general, there are a lot of folks in that camp that'll be like, this disqualifies my faith. I can't find a place for this. So then my faith is sort of disqualified. Christianity doesn't fit for me because it can't explain these things. And that's what I think.
But that's where faith. That's what faith is all about.
Right? But I think if you provide context and start pointing out all of the odd and supernatural things in our Bibles and in our faith, that you can fit your experiences in there and say, okay, this makes sense in the idea of spirits or angels or demons or fallen angels or creatures, whatever it is. As you pointed out, we know less about the ocean. What is it like? I think I'm going to butcher this. You can fact check. But it's like, what do we know about? We've explored like 7% of our oceans.
I'm with that. I'm fine.
Yeah.
With that. I'm not even going to fact
Less.
check you.
I use one of God's creatures, a duck-billed platypus.
Yeah, that's a good pull.
Okay, he screwed all of the scientists' minds up. Okay, when they run up on him,
In case y'all are wondering,
they
Si
looked
watches
at it and
a
said,
lot
"Wait a
of
minute.
PBS.
Hold it. This guy can breathe water, and he can also breathe air.
Yeah.
That ain't right."
What if he was
Baby
created by the
Carter.
Nephilim?
My assistant's actually here. Sorry.
What if the platypus was created by the Nephilim?
Well, no, Cook.
That's
I
even
always
a weird-
look at
that's a
The
things-
weird-
Bible recap for the year on day 2 just blows a lot of people's
It
minds.
does.
By the way, I was reading that thing. I was like, the people that don't know what's happening here are like, even me. I was like,
Like
well, this
Genesis
is deep.
6. This is interesting.
Genesis goes what? Sorry, my son is here though.
Yeah.
Carter, he's been on the show before.
What did he just give you?
He has a list.
Let's do it.
So he's a big fan of 3 things: Vietnam veterans, specifically Uncle Si,
There
the
we go.
presidents, and the paranormal. And he brought a list with him.
Oh, All right.
of
Presidents.
paranormal. Oh yeah, he can tell you more about presidents than he can. What's a Kelpie? Do we know what that is?
Kelsey. That's Travis Kelsey and Jason. Oh,
It's a ghost horse. See, you're teaching Blurry Creatures. The Chupacabra. That's
we know about that.
oh, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Have we covered Loch Ness
That's
Monster, Kraken, Yeti? What is a Wendigo?
Wendigo.
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 There you go.
What is
He
that?
said it earlier. I thought
Yeah.
he was just saying when to go, but it was Wendigo.
No. No.
You told me what time to go.
It's
Yeah.
like an emaciated looking, like half human, half like he's got like a deer. A lot of them time they see with antlers.
Well, no.
Like a buck commander, if you will.
Yeah.
Nope. Same thing. Here we go again.
Commander of all the bucks.
With God's creation, ducks. We see them all the time. People kill them when they look so weird. They look something flew by. It's weird looking. Kill it.
Time out. A
And they're
duck
looking.
is way more normal looking than whatever this thing
Yeah.
is.
See? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that out there? Carter, is that out there?
Yeah.
Carter gave me a
Oh, yeah.
thumbs
No,
up.
we hadn't.
We've had a lot of people talk about it. We're actually
we did an episode, Carter, where with
Well-
two police officers that had a Wendigo encounter that was
Here's
like,
the thing.
terrifying.
Me and
Okay.
Carter are watching that one for sure.
Here's
It's
the
definitely
thing.
at the airport in Denver.
It's living underneath.
It's
it.
living
The lizard
underneath
people.
that.
Today,
Yeah.
today
Telling
is
people.
Sunday. Okay, and well, the preacher had a great lesson. Okay, and here I'm looking. It's okay. You got the physical world. Okay, that's what we can touch. I got my hands on this. I can touch it, physical. Then you got the microscopic. I can't see it unless I got a scope, high-powered scope. Then I can take blood, drop of blood from me, look at it, and good grief, jump back scares me. It's moving.
Your blood moves?
Yeah, there's all kind of stuff moving in my blood, that little drop of blood. Then you go, spiritual. Wait a minute, what are you talking about spiritual? It's spiritual, okay? You can't touch it. I can stick my hand through it. Yeah. So for you to say, no, I can't go that route. Yeah. Because when you get right down to it, why don't you believe a miracle?
Yeah.
Because it's something out of the ordinary has happened. And with your little pea brain that God gave you, you can't make it work.
Like Ghost.
Yeah.
Carter has Sarah Winchester's ghost. Do we know who that is?
From the
Yeah.
We know you know who it is, son.
Yeah,
Well, you don't
Winchester
have a
Mystery House.
microphone.
That's in San Jose, right?
Yeah.
I've been to the Winchester Mystery House.
Yeah. We're California kids. That's right near our neck of the woods. So
I've been there a few
So
times.
is Sarah Winchester how y'all got started? This just
No.
this interests me because some
No.
people are into, trading sports cards like Willie was or duck hunting, and y'all are like, let's find the ghost in the Chupacabra.
I think
How did we start?
Yeah.
there's I think the show, the start of it was mostly I was listening to stories about Bigfoot, and then I needed some in my head. I needed something different to listen to while I bought my first house and was remodeling it, and I was just didn't want to listen to sports talk radio. I just needed something a little bit out there, kind of spooky, but not like stories. I wanted to hear like real testimonies, and then it was when 3 or 4 years into listening to these kinds of stories where theologians kept coming on some of the podcasts and stuff that we were listening to, and I saw this thread of, wait, there's this group of theologians that are willing to talk about all the weird stuff. And it answers a lot of questions that Christians have growing up that you kind of explain away, like why did God flood the earth? Why are these things that are harder for adults to kind of wrap their minds around, or they come up with wild conclusions. And so after listening to more and more of these theologians talking about giants, I think that was kind of the gist of when Blurry was like, man, we need to do this, because when you go down the rabbit hole of giants in the Bible,
Yeah.
it is fascinating.
No.
Some of them, described in the Promised Land were massive. They say the size of these cedar trees, and then people go, it's just how they talked back then. They're like, no, we actually.
Well, what are you going to do when you walk up on the planet? He's 7'8", 7'8" tall.
Who is?
That's not a.
Oh man.
Willie once got booed by Charles Barkley at a golf tournament.
Well, no, because I'm saying, okay,
It's
what
the
are
biggest
you,
guy I've ever
What
met.
are you going to do with this 7'8" man?
You better be fast, Si. You better be real fast.
But I keep going back,
You gotta bite his ankles.
yeah.
Well, there's human
You know?
giants, and then there's like hybrid giants in the Bible, like David and Goliath story. I think Goliath was not a typical human. He was a big boy. He was some estimate over 10 foot, but I think he was a small one compared to some of the other stories that we hear. And we've dug into that topic a lot. Historically, evidence of like people still seeing these things, ancient reports, newspaper clippings. I mean, there's a lot there about the giants and the history of them.
Here's one thing that I love, okay, because everybody's always, you can't explain it, okay, and like you're talking about, they have a problem with Christians do. Finally, you can read about it in Genesis where the Israelites are chasing the people of Israel, God's chosen people. They finally said, yeah, get out of our country. And then he changed his mind. He said, all right, follow the army and kill them all. So look, they come to the Red Sea. Moses puts his staff out, separates the water, go through. And then the Egyptians, when they get in the water, where the water was dry, God lets the water collapse and drowns them all. Yeah. Well, somebody finally just said one day, hey, you know what we ought to do? We read about it in Genesis. We ought to get our divers to go down to the bottom of the Red Sea and see what's down there. Well, when they did, guess what it is? A lot of dead Egyptian bones, mules, horses,
chariots,
all this stuff.
Yeah.
You read about it first, you idiot. You didn't believe it.
Case closed.
Thank you.
Case closed.
It takes the whole podcast to kind of to break people's paradigms to prove those points because, on Sunday morning, you don't have all this time and energy to devote endless episodes to it. I mean, we've looked at the giants, just the discussion around every way we can prove that these giants were real from historical clippings, even looked at the language,
Yeah.
and how there are like ancient words they use to describe the god kings, the Nephilim of Genesis, and even the language proves that this started at a certain place and it spread out. And we've talked about all the mounds. You guys got some mounds here in Louisiana. You got these strange mounds that were built all over the world. How does that happen? And we've talked about on our show that these things left the Holy Land, went all over the world, and we're building these mounds, which are like these ancient portal, burial, ceremonial structures, and they buried their dead in them. And there's reports of natives fighting these things all the way back. So we if we could ever find anything new about the giants, we bring it on our show. We talk about it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weird stuff, but it gets blurry. That's why we call it that. It gets blurry.
Kind of like Barry Bonds' records, huh?
Yeah.
The asterisks. Yeah. Cream in the clear.
He was a giant. Willie, you grew up in a land of weird stuff.
The best giant, I would say.
Blurry. You grew up in a land of weird stuff. Down at Phil's house. What was the weirdest thing you've ever seen?
He's sitting over there when he would make his journey in. A couple of observations. I like how of all the scariest things that we've talked about, microscopic human blood is what right inside the most. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All of the photos, all of this. I will say,
it's moving.
If this note ever showed up to my door, this would frighten me to death.
Carter's list.
There's something. I felt a little bit of evilness just when it passed by me. I think the question is, why doesn't the churches talk about it more? Because I think they don't know. They don't have any experience with it. And I think there is some phoniness, I feel like. So I guess some of the things that we see written in the Bible that then perhaps are tried and failed, and then it's like, well, that didn't work, so let's just keep it really safe and sanitized.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
I do think
or some other groups, I feel like then maybe they try to gin it up constantly to try to, to say the, especially the miracles, like.
Well, that's
and
what's
everything
wrong.
begins. The miracles are soft tissue that that got fixed. Some
Right.
stuff that we can't, not where it's like the arm is gone and now it's back, or whatever. And so I do think some groups have they just stay away from it because they don't.
Yeah, but why
they don't wanna
can't
look
the
foolish.
human being, okay, hey, you don't have the answer. Why don't you just say, I don't know?
It's hard because you're
instead of saying
requires
something
humility.
negative
This
or
is-
going
well, the church has
somewhere
kind
else.
of, historically provided the answers. That's why people show up because they need the answers. They haven't started with the questions, And I think what we have now, we've seen in the media, the legacy media is collapsing. People don't trust that anymore. They just are trying to find anyone who's willing to tell you the truth. And,
Well, that's why I was
say, I
saying-
don't know. And
Yeah.
those people are actually having millions of listeners now. So I think we're in a time where people want the church to tell them the weird stuff, get into the meat and potatoes, and not play it safe.
Well, some of the things you just can't, like one of my, I don't know if y'all touched on this, but is speaking of blurry creatures, I see people, but they look like trees. The miracle where Jesus, and then it does it again. I mean, that just fascinates me. How, what happened? Like, joke? Was it work? Needed a different combination,
Yeah.
So the stories like that in the New Testament, or in the Bible, they fascinate me because I really don't know. I don't know.
That's a good question. What's the weirdest thing in the Bible to each of us? Like, what's the weirdest thing that you think is like the hardest to believe or the hardest to think that might have happened? That's a thing to ponder.
Just got deep.
That's one.
I think the talking donkey story is
Balaam.
Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah. A talking, donkey.
You seen one of those?
He was
Did you see him?
at one time. No, he was.
If
Because
you-
I believe what it said about it.
Right. No, you ever seen a talking donkey? You ever had one
Nope.
whisper in your ear?
Well, hey, here's the thing. They got to have a language because they got to communicate between each other.
Right.
There's no language that don't have any, like birds. Birds don't just tweet and do all this stuff. They're talking to each other.
Right.
That's why I said the deal about, hey, why don't the human being, when we run up on something we cannot prove to our satisfaction that it's real.
It's because I think it's, if I'm to answer, I think it's because a lot of pastors and leaders in the Christian church are in a place of authority where there's a pressure to always have an answer. And that requires some humility to actually say, I don't know. And I would point this out too, to what Willie was saying. Like, I think what we're discussing here is very much a Western problem. If you get out of the West, you go to sub-Saharan Africa, you go to the Amazon, they live a very supernatural reality. Like, all you gotta do is talk to any missionary.
There's a lot more stories of
Way more
miracles and
right.
like,
We talked to
stuff
Tom
that's
Doyle
happened.
on the show, who basically is chronicling Muslims behind the Muslim wall, having repeated night after night dreams about Jesus, and Jesus calling these people out of Islam to himself, and this happens regularly. And then you go. I mean, my favorite ones are missionaries, where they go these unreached places, and literally these tribes are like, we worship this God. This is our God. And the story, I've heard it 100 times now. They're like, okay, the missionaries are there. Inevitably, there's a witch doctor. The witch doctor actually does heal people. There's this thing that happens with powers of darkness where it happens. When it happens is sometimes they don't. I've heard the story at least half a dozen times. They don't. The witch doctor can't heal the person. And so, lo and behold, down the hill comes the tribesmen. They say, hey, we got a guy who can't. He's not getting healed. Witch doctor can't do it. Can your God do it? And these missionaries go, we believe he can. And they go pray, and the person gets healed. And what happens? The entire village converts because they go, your God is more powerful than our God. That sort of paradigm doesn't exist in the West. We have agnostics and atheists and all
But
this.
it exists in the Bible,
Right, but I'm just saying, like, when we're talking about the church, like when you get out of the West, like most folks, whether you go to Haiti or sub-Saharan Africa or the Middle East, they live a very supernatural reality. That they don't have this division where they've imperialized everything and said, like, we got to measure, touch, as you talked about, measure, touch, feel, and then we got to validate within that. And I guess the irony is that we talked to a guy on the show, Dr. Craig Keener, and he's been recording miracles. Like, he's got volumes of modern miracles.
Oh,
And these are from the West and from outside the West, but they're happening. They're still happening. They're happening in the West. You just don't hear about them, which is wild.
well, no. Because God's still doing miracles.
Of course he is. That's his business.
He's not doing them for the same reason that he did them in the beginning.
We asked that question, Si. We asked him, like, what if you were to say, why do you
Maybe
think?
he is.
There's not a formula to it, right? A miracle is really just,
Yeah.
its basis is God intervening into the natural and something supernatural, something outside of the norm happens. Like you have this healing, or an arm grows back, or, whatever. And Craig said his opinion, there's not a formula, but God acts in the miraculous at the cutting edge of evangelism. So when his name is on the line and people will come to him, God intervenes, whether it be
When it's for his purpose.
100%. So a whole
His
village
purpose
gets
and
saved,
his
right?
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see on the show a lot. Have you ever seen a movie called The Usual Suspects? Anybody seen that? You know what I'm talking about? Never mind that. It's a good reference. But essentially, in the movie, he said the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world it didn't exist. And I think that's kind of where we live. We live in this in the time where a lot of people don't believe that the devil exists or that Satan exists. It's and if that is your worldview, and you don't have, as you talked about, this sort of army of darkness or kingdom of darkness warring against the kingdom of God, it's very hard to contextualize a lot of these things. And they'll say those things don't happen, but you're like, man, this happened in the Bible. Christ goes to the man at the tombs, casts out a legion, thousands of demons.
Yeah.
Out of a man, and this happens today. We've had exorcists on the show, and this is.
Well,
I think
it's happened to my brother twice.
Yeah.
Phil and another man.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay, they actually seen it, and Phil and him looked at each other and said, "Hey, if that lady is demon possessed."
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
I think.
So I look at that and
Yeah, but you look at like what do they talk about? So if we're here and we're in the United States, then most people will say, "Oh, that's mental illness or it's schizophrenia," and these things get diagnosed away as let's just give them another drug.
Sometimes it is those.
Sometimes
things.
it is that. Of course, I think exorcists, if we talk to, actually have a pretty good protocol, being like, "Do you have a mental illness or are you demonized or possessed?"
I was just
But I would
say,
yeah.
I was just fixed to say, maybe the doctor don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
But there's even a difference.
he's
between,
treating it for something else, and hey, it's demon possessed.
Right.
Well, there's
Heads
You're
going
never
heads going
gonna
backwards.
possession.
You're never going to cure him, okay? Because you're
Yeah.
treating the wrong.
Yeah, it's a backwards head, just like your pigeon.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But it gets even darker because or even stranger.
I think we live in a time when we want to be able to empirically, as I said, measure, explain, hypothesize everything away and make it neat. And you can't do that to God. You can't put God in a box. And I think the entire story, as Nate's saying in the Bible, is literally God intervening into the story of humanity and ultimately restoring Adam and the sons of Adam back to his family, right? And I do think that's you get in this sort of analysis or paralysis of analysis, they say, right, where we try to analyze everything to death and measure everything. I think what's amazing, though, to that point is the more archaeology that's done in the Middle East, the more that it confirms the Bible, whether it be the Dead Sea Scrolls or whether it be them finding Sodom and Gomorrah or the more that they dig, the more that they look, the more they are finding corroboration for the stories of the Bible. I think, and I think if we're meant to trust data, like that's the way that our society works. The data is being provided, which is a pretty amazing thing, right? Because if you're living in somewhere else, I think that it's a different, you have different needs, right? It's sort of like the first world problems, right? That we need to sort of analyze everything to death. I think you live in a different paradigm if you are just worried about where your next meal's coming from. If you're going to make it, that's a completely different place. I mean, I spent time in Southeast Asia, as a kid or as a young person with YWAM, and encountered families that didn't know if they're going to be able to feed themselves after the next week or after the next 3 days. And that's such a different place because they were trusting God to meet their needs, to fill their bellies tonight and tomorrow. And it's just a different space to be like, let's try to analyze all this and make this all fit into our academic paradigm to man, I just need God to provide, and he does.
Yeah,
right?
but
he does.
The human race missed the point.
Well, I agree.
God wants us to seek him.
Yeah.
Okay, so common sense would tell you, okay, I'm never going to allow you to know it all. Okay, because you're going to get too big for your britches. You done it once, and I had to kill all of you, or tried to anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, so I think about this. Think about how many times we are asked God for something, right? And are praying that God comes through, but we have a plan B in case He doesn't. This is what we do.
Well, no.
I mean, this is what we do. We have a 401k and we have retirement. God, if this doesn't happen, like I got XYZ, I have contingency plans.
And we've got
God
our
doesn't come
own
through.
way we want it to happen.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that is a lived reality for 90% of the planet. They don't live that. They're like, dude, we need to eat, or I just hope that I don't get blown up today. Or it's just a different set of needs. And it's interesting. Like the idea of faith in different parts of the world is very interesting. Like what you believe God for, what you say you believe God for, but you really plan contingency for at the same time. Because that's not the Bible. We see that happen, right? I mean,
well, that's like science, and all of our great minds in the science, side said it didn't go with the Bible,
right.
which I think that's a false assertion.
Yeah,
It does go with the
it
Bible.
does. We had
Whatever you find in the Bible is backed up by science.
we actually touched on this, Nate, with we were talking to Hugh Ross about as they look back in history. There's if theory of evolution is real, you should see a progression.
No,
Right?
you would still
But
be
they're,
seeing
they're,
it
they're
happen.
finding periods, as they call them. I
Yeah.
forget the name. There's fancy names
Yeah.
where everything shows up fully developed. You don't find any in betweens. And these are really hard, impossible questions to answer for an evolutionist because it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't have all of a sudden this period begins and there's fully formed duckbill platypus, to your example, right? Like that. How does that actually blows everything up and behooves like an intelligent design.
That's why they figured out that, hey, they've been lying to us all these years.
They really have.
I think we also let the science mindset into the church a lot because science can only explain 3 parts of our reality, right? But the Bible says there's a 4th part of reality.
Yeah.
There's this unseen realm. There's dimensional things that we can't understand. And sometimes that 4th part of reality messes with our current life.
That's why
we see it from time to time, but we don't see it all the time. There's a veil there. And what I will say is people in the West, people have experiences and they don't talk about them. They're not allowed to talk about them, but doesn't mean that the miracles and the weird stuff isn't happening.
Yeah, agreed.
We bring on people who are professionals, PhDs, scholars, and they'll talk about a completely unrelated paranormal story that you would think they were nuts, but because we give them access and license to talk about it, they'll say, when I was a kid, I saw this thing, and I can't explain it, and I saw it as clear as day, and everyone think I'm nuts, but we don't, because we're like, well, that's every day on our podcast.
Yeah.
But I think actually all the weird stuff is still happening just as much as it was today as it.
No, it is because that's why,
it's just not acceptable to talk about.
That's why I went with the physical, spiritual, and you brought up another one because the preacher preached on it. Okay. And when you get right to it, God, is outside of time. Okay. God is all-knowing, all-powerful. Okay. Well, He understands all of them worlds. All these different worlds, He's in them. He's the one that created them. Well, we have no idea. Like you said, we run up on something we can't explain. And what it is, we're scared to death of it. Because we can't explain it.
Yeah.
It's wild, wild times.
Case closed.
Case closed.
Oh, no.
I hate to close the case, but we are.
I'm just saying the Creator didn't create nothing without a purpose behind it.
Amen.
Case closed.
Case
Case
closed.
closed. Look,
Case closed.
what an incredible conversation.
Well, no.
Si's fired up.
I am.
Si, I've got something I need you to do, though, and I'm going to do it for you.
Okay.
I need you to go to blurrycreatures.com. Up at the top, they got their Facebook, their Instagram, their YouTube, their podcast link. They're Blurry Creatures pretty much on everything.
Hey.
Go give these guys a follow, like, and subscribe. Me and Carter are about to go home and watch something about a wendigo. Did I say it right?
Hey, you need
Wendigo.
to call
Wendigo.
my wife
Very-
and tell her
very
to do
Louisiana
that.
of you, I like it.
Well,
I'm not.
You don't want to see
Winnebago.
him.
That's a wendigo.
Don't
we're
make
going
a,
to take a vacation.
don't
in
make a
one day.
Wendigo call.
Don't make a
You
Wendigo.
don't want
Okay.
that guy showing up.
It's
I don't
sorta,
wanna-
hey, here's what I want to tell you. It's all about your perspective. Your perspective. My perspective. His perspective. Okay, but back it up
Back it up. And to back it up, you guys have talked about the Bible the whole time. We end every podcast with a Bible verse. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. Your favorite verse, a verse to leave people with. Nate or Luke, thanks for being here. I'll let you end it.
All right. Well, we talk about Genesis 6 all the time, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically about how I think it's a big part of my life now. Obviously, it's the reason this show exists. That there were angelic beings and human beings came together and created something that was a big part of the reason the Old Testament is confusing and weird, and there's a lot of stuff going on in there. If you miss that verse, if you miss that idea, you really don't have a very clear perspective of what's going on in the Old Testament. And I think those verses are very important. So Genesis 6, give it a look at. Read it with the clear lens. The sons of God are different than the daughters of men, and there's this whole this beginning part of this huge story. So I'd say Genesis 6.
You should have like T-shirts with something about the Nephilim on them.
Oh, we do.
Oh, okay, just check.
We
Way
studied that. We studied that, and I'm still confused on it.
So I'm just going to read it.
Yeah.
Genesis
We'll talk to you
6:4.
about it. We'll ask you about that.
I'm serious.
The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, men of renown.
Renown.
Just a question right quick.
Yeah.
The Philistine
Yeah.
that David slew with the slingshot.
Goliath.
How big was he?
Real.
10 feet
10 feet tall.
10 feet tall.
at least.
And he had 3 brothers. They were mercenaries. They had
I mean,
4
his armor
four.
was
Well,
Four
he couldn't.
giants.
He couldn't lift his sword.
yeah.
Cut his head off.
Yeah.
My last
Too
question. Samson, was he ripped or did he just look normal?
Oh, he had magical hair.
His
So
lettuce
did he
was
have
next
big,
level.
huge muscles, or did he just all of a
That's a
sudden
good
show up
que-
as a little wiry guy whooping on people?
I think I go B. I don't think he was like
I don't think he looked.
Arnold. I think he just had like a supernatural strength.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
He
Well,
was like-
thanks
Oh,
for tuning
He was
in.
like Marshall Falk with like great hair. Is that what you're trying to say?
Marshall Falk.
Well, see, that would have been. Hey,
Little guy.
he would have been. Hey, Samson.
Maybe.
San Diego
He was
State.
a little guy, but he was
Yeah, but that's
just
right one.
Samson
scrappy.
would have been a freak.
Samson would have been a freak.
That's right.
All right, Samson
Thank you,
was a
baby
freak.
Carter.
Hey,
That-
Baby
Yes.
Carter that can just bench press 500 and catch 300 foxes and
Carter's
set them on
on.
Don't let him
fire.
cut your hair, Carter.
Never. What are you doing, son? Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to get him
Hey.
back home.
Hey.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Yeah.